Welcome to the second video in my series of things that I just want us to take a moment to think about and consider as the world is going through another period of change in relation to the pandemic that's going on. It doesn't seem to matter what country you are in around the world, there is change going on right now. So yesterday I shared 7 things that I thought that we should just take a moment to consider, acknowledge, and today I want us to focus on one of those. So one of the things that I touched on in yesterday's video, in the first video, was that we can only control ourselves and the decisions that we make for ourselves. Okay. Now, I think building on that, it would be of value to think about the things that we can and the things that we can't control. Because I don't know about you, but when this all started to happen back in March, there was an overwhelming sense of overwhelm and being out of control. And that was quite anxiety inducing. I think quite a lot of people, perhaps like me, were kind of glued to the news for several weeks, just wondering what was going on. It was all so new. None of us really understood it. Whereas this time, we are in a different place. And we can just take a moment and say, right, what can I control and what can't I control? Okay. So the sorts of things that we can control, is the irony is that we can actually accept that we're not in control. It's an ironic thing, I know, but once we accept that we're not in control of making the decisions at a national or a global level, once we accept that we are not in control of the virus, that there is no treatment, there is no vaccine, there is no cure. There is treatment, there's not a cure. There is no vaccine. Once we realise we can't control it by doing that, then ironically we can almost get a sense of, well, I can't control it, so let's get on with the things that I can control. I know it's a lot easier said than done. Which brings us on to the fact that we can control how we choose to behave. I don't know about you, but I have noticed that people's behaviour at the beginning of the pandemic was much more respecting the social distancing than it is now. People seem to have relaxed quite a lot in terms of the social distancing. I don't like that, because I'm in a position where I have to keep on working. I am self-employed. I cannot afford to take sick leave. Certainly here in the UK, I wouldn't be furloughed. So if I am not able to work, I am not able to earn, and then my problems become a lot bigger. So for me, it is really important that I observe the social distancing, as well as the regular washing of hands and wearing a face mask. However, I have noticed that a lot of people in the supermarkets are not necessarily following the same guidelines as I am. Now, I actually only go to the supermarket and I've been to have my hair cut. Those are the only 2 places that I go. I have been to a cafe and sat outside, again socially distanced, but apart from that, the two places that I have been are the supermarket on a weekly basis, and I've had my hair cut twice. I choose to behave in a way that respects the fact that the virus has not changed, it has not gone away, and that social distancing and washing my hands are the safest way to prevent myself getting it, which would then impact my ability to work and pay my bills. Okay. We can control how we behave. We can't control how other people behave. Okay. But I like to know that I can control how I behave. I can also control when I go to the supermarket. So because more and more people seem to be disrespecting the rules, I decided to start going to the supermarket when it was quieter, significantly quieter. So I started going at the end of the day when logic said to me, well, parents and children will be at home because it's dinner time. So I will go when most people will be at home either having dinner or preparing dinner. And that has enabled me to further protect myself because the supermarket that I go to is not busy at those times. We can also control whether or not we ask for help and support. Now, this is a really tricky one, because I know that people who have a clutter challenge tend to be perfectionists, and the perfectionists inside them don't like asking for help. They see that as a sign of weakness. They see that as a sign of failure. They see that as a sign of, not being able to do something on their own. However, we are in a pandemic. We need to learn to ask for help and support, and we can control that. And ironically, in a way, because of the social distancing, we can actually ask for help without anybody else having to know. That's the irony. There are lots of help and support groups that have been set up from the beginning of lockdown. My social gatherings came about because of lockdown, because I knew that people with a lot of clutter needed help and support, just to know that they're not alone. So again, we are now in a place where there is a lot more help and support out there than there was the last time that there was a lockdown. We can also control our boundaries. We have a choice as to whether or not we go out and whether or not we socially distance. This is linked with behaving. Okay, so we get to control our boundaries. So we get to choose who comes into our home. We get to choose who comes into our space. Okay, like I say, it's linked in with behaving. So we can control that. I don't know about you, but I have certainly experienced frustration that people that I know and have known for a long time don't respect my boundaries. That they think that either they've had it so they're okay, or think, well, I haven't got symptoms so I'm okay. And although I believe that my husband and I had it back in January, we were very ill back in January, that doesn't mean that I am working on the basis that I assume that we have had it. Yes, we had the symptoms. However, that I am not assuming that I have had it, and therefore I am keeping those boundaries in place for everyone. I don't care whether people think they've had it. I don't care whether people have had people in their families who have been confirmed as having had it and therefore they assume that they're immune. I don't care. I am protecting my boundaries because that is something that I can control. If that means that people think I'm being a miserable cow, I don't care. I need to keep myself safe. Which also links in with that we can control whether or not we catch the virus. We're only going to catch the virus if we don't protect our boundaries and if we behave in a way that means that coronavirus, can jump. There was somebody on the media that I saw, and she was brilliant. She said it doesn't matter whether you're in a group of 6 or whether you're in a group of 30 or you're in a group of 100. Coronavirus only cares about being able to jump, if you like, to the next person. So it could be one-on-one and you could get coronavirus. Coronavirus doesn't respect numbers. It just respects space. So again, I have a choice as to whether or not I put myself in a position where I could catch the virus. I can also control, up to a point, the facts. I know the media summarise things for us, supposedly helpfully. When you dig down into the details, it's not necessarily the headlines that we see. I have chosen to limit the amount of facts. All I need to know is whether we are in lockdown. I only need to know whether or not a vaccine is out there. Apart from that, the amount of facts that I need are very, very limited, because I am choosing whether to catch the virus by following the guidelines, behaving in an appropriate way, and keeping my boundaries. We are also in control of what we do with our time, whether or not we choose for it to be productive or not. Now, again, I know that at the start of the pandemic, a lot of my clients were obsessively watching the news and obsessively following social media to find what was happening. And yes, I did watch a lot of news at the beginning as well. So, I spent quite too much of my time, with hindsight, too much of my time watching the news, and that wasn't helpful. Once I knew we were in a pandemic, the next step was to get proactive in doing something productive. Now, again, we can control how we spend our time. The irony is that quite a lot of people decided to start their clutter clearing journey, their 7-step journey, and make sure that their time in lockdown was productive. Lots of stories, again, in the media, of people taking up hobbies and taking up this and taking up that. Now, here in the UK, the pandemic started in spring, which was great. Quite a lot of people actually became productive by doing gardening and growing food and that, all those kinds of things, getting outdoors. That was great. If we are heading towards another lockdown, it's going to be during the winter. There are going to be less outside opportunities to do things that are productive outdoors. We're much more likely to be indoors. So again, we are in control of what we do with our time. And I know those who did start their 7-step journey during the last lockdown are glad that they did, because they feel like even though nothing has changed in terms of the virus, it's still out there, there's still no cure and there's still no vaccine, they are further along in their clutter clearing journey, so they are closer to becoming clutter free. So we can control what we do with our time. And we're also in control of acknowledging our feelings. We're not in control of our feelings necessarily. The hormones that go around us, the way our body responds, is not something we can necessarily consciously control. But I do think it's important that we acknowledge that we can acknowledge our feelings. It's okay, to have a cry. I think a lot of us probably did when the pandemic happened and people went into lockdown. That sense of overwhelm, sometimes that comes out in tears. That's okay, it's a release. Tears are a way of your body releasing them. Equally, I know that a lot of my clients actually found that their anxiety levels went down, especially if they suffered from social anxiety. No more pressure to be social, no more pressure to be doing what everybody else is doing. I know some people have found that their levels have gone up as lockdown started to be lifted and you could go out more, and people found that social anxiety started to creep up again. I'm supposed to be social, I'm supposed to be going out there, I'm supposed to be doing this, I'm supposed to be doing that. So again, we can control that anxiety by choosing to kind of protect our boundaries and the way that we behave. These things all kind of link together, don't they? So again, it might be worth you, just on a piece of paper, brainstorming and thinking about the things that you can control, even though there are things going on out there that you can't control. Because we can't control what other people choose to do. Yeah. If other people don't understand why I'm protecting my boundaries, if people don't understand why I am following the guidelines and keeping social distancing, wearing a mask and washing my hands, then actually, as hard as it is, that's their problem, not mine. We can't control what the media and the politicians do. And we can't control what they choose to report. It was inevitable that after an initial period we were going to start getting the hindsight. 2020 vision comes with hindsight, and we knew, didn't we, that the politicians were going to be criticised for what they did or didn't do. But we can't control that, and at the end of the day that doesn't matter, because it's not changing the situation. We can't control what the rules are, as much as we may agree or disagree with them. We can't control them, but we can control how we behave. We can control our boundaries. We can control whether or not we catch the virus. And of course, the last thing I thought of that we can't control is we cannot control the future. There is no such thing as a magic ball which is going to show us what the future looks like. It will be what it will be. But again, linking back to what I said in yesterday's video, we can control what we do. We can control the decisions that we make. Okay? So again, I strongly encourage you, just take a moment and think about the things that you can control. And take a moment to think about the things that you can't control. Then we're in a position where we can start to make a plan. So, I hope that was helpful. And tomorrow, let's start to think about some positives. I've kind of, in this video and the last video, is probably a bit of a downer. But let's start to think of some positives as the world continues to change. I shall see you in the next video.